Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. I know we were supposed to give you a little bit of a break there in the middle, but we ate that break for snacks. But if for those of you who are just joining us for the day, welcome to Full Circle Season 2, the only conference for small and one-person B2B marketing teams with big ambitions. And this season, we're all fighting AI slop. I'm Pallavi, and I'm one half of the Full Circle team. The other half is probably joining us from the break, which we had promised him. But we are now kicking off track 2 at Full Circle Season 2. And this one's all about how to stand out when the internet is drowning in AI drivel. So, this is where we get practical about what actually cuts through all the formats, all the ideas, all the systems that help small teams build content that people actually remember and not just scroll past. And for our first session in this track, we've got someone who's cracked the code better than almost anyone else I know, Jess Cook. And if you somehow don't know Jess, she's the head of marketing at Vector, and she's the mastermind behind some of the most distinctive, ownable B2B content that we see on the internet right now. Vector doesn't just make content, they make content IP, mascots, recurring formats, brilliant ideas that you can't clone even if you really wanted to, right? And Jess is going to walk you through today exactly how to do that. Even if your team is tiny, even if it's just you with a can of Red Bull and a half functioning laptop, she's going to help you figure out how you can approach your content strategy with a lot more force. So, she's going to be talking about why being forgotten is the most expensive problem in B2B right now. She'll talk you through how to turn content into IP, which are magnetic assets that your competitors can't touch, and the mindset shift from shipping more stuff to building brand assets. On that note, Jess, over to you.
Hello. Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much, Pallavi. Hi, everyone. I'm Jess Cook. I am head of marketing at Vector, and I'm super excited to be here today to talk about content IP, what it is, how you can find kind of your magical content IP and create very, very memorable content that your competitors could never create even in their wildest dreams. So let me bring up my slides. Amazing. Okay, I think we can see that. Great. Okay. All right, awesome. What is content IP? So Brendan Hufford wrote this incredible article earlier this year called Content IP, the $1 Million Framework. And it's a really awesome article. You should all go read it. His thoughts are brilliant. But I think what maybe it stops short on is that what he is calling content IP to me is the idea of actual conceptual scoops. There's kind of this idea in journalism that if you are one of the first in the news to come up with a phrase or coin a phrase, you get to own that phrase. And in B2B, we do that all the time. But that's just one piece of a bigger picture. So what are some conceptual scoops that we can use as examples? Fabrice came up with this idea of nose blind, right? That when you enter your home, you are blind to the smells that are there that others notice right away. And this kind of conceptual scoop was something that they used, and it really actually turned the business around. They were about to be shelved as a product. And then their marketing team came up with this idea, and sales took off, and they are now the brand that we know and love today. Quiet quitting is another one that was super popular a couple years ago. A conceptual scoop that was adopted by all kinds of media outlets until we were all sick of it. Amanda Natividad came up with this brilliant idea of zero-click content. That was kind of her conceptual scoop around this idea that you need to be able to provide value to your audience without having them click, right? You have to be able to build the lesson into the organic post, into your clip, because no one really clicks anymore. They just scroll. And so that was her conceptual scoop. Gong came up with revenue intelligence, right? They are call recording software, but they do much more than that. They allow you to see what's going on inside of your sales calls and give you that revenue intelligence. But again, these conceptual scoops are just one piece of a larger picture of what I consider content IP to be. So what is content IP really? And to me, the definition is any idea that is unique enough to be held in the minds of your audience by only your brand. It is so ownable that only your audience only can see you saying this, doing this, publishing this. And it can honestly be any idea. It doesn't have to be just a phrase that you hang your hat on. I'm going to walk through some examples of this that we're doing at Vector today. But first, you may be wondering, like, what gives me, Jess Cook, can I move myself? There we go. The right to your time. It's a very valid question. Why am I up here talking about this huge, big, 50,000 foot topic? Well, I have worked on some of the most iconic brands in the world in my past life. The first 15 years of my career, I spent as a copywriter and creative director on all kinds of Kellogg and Kimberly Clark brands. So you see just a few of them here, as well as McDonald's. I used to write the jokes on Happy Meal boxes. I've written scripts for anthropomorphic cheese wheels. I wrote comics for Pop-Tarts. I used to tweet as Tony the Tiger for a while, wrote a number of videos, including a Super Bowl commercial for Rice Krispies, did some really wild social stuff in the early days of brands being on Facebook for Eggo. So thank you, Jamie, kind of a big deal. I appreciate that. I think what I'm trying to say is I've been creating content IP for brands for a long, long time. And we're going to talk through some of this, like what does it actually mean to create content IP for a B2C brand? But then what does it also look like to do that for a B2B brand? They're not that different, to be honest. Okay. So here's the real reason why I'm up here talking about this today. There are some things that come with marketing a B2C brand and things that you learn about content IP that most B2B brands just don't know. I think we all know there's a very big difference if you look at what B2C brands do in the market versus what B2B brands typically and traditionally do. And I think we're starting to see some more B2B brands like see the light and use B2C as inspiration because B2C has had this right for a very, very long time. And we're going to talk about these three things that B2C brands know about content IP that most B2B brands don't. Okay, number one is ownability versus primacy. So the idea here is that sometimes you have to be the only one that can claim something, and sometimes you just have to be the first one to claim something. So what does that actually mean? So when I worked on Cottonelle, we did a program, a campaign called the Roll Poll. And the idea was that we were going to use digital ads to get people to vote on whether they rolled their toilet paper over. So like the little sheet of your toilet paper hangs over the roll or under, it goes backwards on the roll. People have very, very opinionated views on this. And the result of this campaign showed we had over 2 million people vote in ads. And this is early 2000s. So this is, very early digital marketing days. To have 2 million people vote inside of an ad is mind blowing. Now, this is something that Cottonelle came up with, but every single roll of toilet paper in the market rolls both ways. And every single person who uses toilet paper has an opinion on which way it should go. And so they realized that there was power in just being the first to claim this thinking around rolling over versus under. So sometimes you actually have to be able to claim something others can't. We all know this in B2B. We're always looking for that unique selling proposition. Like, what is the thing that no one else can say about their product that I can say about mine? And sometimes you just have to be the first. You have to find the thing that is universal to your audience and your competitors' audiences, and really understand, like, how do we get out there first to say it? Second is the ideal state. And what do I mean by this? This is sell the feeling of the end goal, not the frosting particles per flake. This is something we get wrong in B2B all the time. The idea that we need to talk about, exactly what the product does and the in the weeds functionality of things. But when you look at B2C, you never see Frosted Flakes talking about, we have 47 millimeter, I don't know, millimeters of frosting per flake, right? They just don't talk about their product that way. Very few B2C companies do that. And so they're more selling the feeling of the end goal, which, let's keep going with the Frosted Flakes example. They are very into kind of an active lifestyle. Tony the Tiger likes to play a lot of sports, right? And so they're kind of like the snack that you go to before you go win the championship game when you're a kid, right? And so they're selling the feeling of that end goal, what it feels like to celebrate with your teammates as a kid and score that, I'm not great at sports, guys, home run. And they're, very, very big into kind of the celebratory aspect of what it means just to participate in sports. So again, think about that. What's the ideal state? What's the emotion attached to that ideal state? And can you sell that instead of the thing that gets someone in your product to that ideal state? Finally, number 3, B2C brands understand character development. So most B2C brands, or many B2C brands, will have some sort of mascot or character in their videos or their commercials, right? They understand that people get bought into these stories of characters, whether they're an animated tiger, a little elf that loves cereal, a Pop-Tart mascot, right? And they build these realistic, multi-dimensional characters that have personalities and backstories and motivations and goals. And we just really haven't cracked that much in B2B. There's very few brands that kind of hang their hat on character development of any kind, whether that's a mascot, the people within the company, they're building stories inside some ad content, anything like that. And so I think it's really something important to remember, like, how can we develop characters within our marketing that our audience can relate to? And there's so many ways that that can be done. So those are kind of the 3 that, as I walk through examples from Vector today, like, think about where on this spectrum they fall, because we're using all 3 of these today. Okay. What can happen when you apply those 3 principles in B2B? I want to show you some of the results that we have seen at Vector before we jump into our examples. So a few things here. We just had Spotify Wrapped. I know all of you have been looking at your Spotify Wrapped, and we've seen them posted on a lot on LinkedIn and Instagram this year, which is really exciting. Spotify also does kind of a version of that for creators. And so we were able to see this year that our Vector's podcast, which we'll talk about in a bit more in depth, our podcast is called This Meeting Could Have Been a Podcast. And it was more shared and talked about than 90% of shows in its category on Spotify this year. That is the kind of thing that can happen when you really lean into content IP. What are those things that are just really magical about your company that no one else can touch? And that is what that podcast is built on. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Branded search up 430% this year. This was mind-blowing to me when I looked this stat up for this presentation. People searching for Vector plus any other keyword is up 430% since I started in February of this year. And that is really a byproduct of us just being out there, doing interesting things, creating content that people can see themselves in, that there's a story to, that people want to be a part of. And so, I think that's part of the reason that we've seen growth like that, specifically in our brand name showing up more and more people wanting to know what we're all about. We get this one all the time, inbound demos from people who say they saw us everywhere. We have one of those, how did you hear about us fields on our demo form. It's lovely because we market to marketers, and marketers are the best when it comes to filling in that form. They will tell you the exact date of the LinkedIn post that they saw and who it was from and what in there triggered them to come and book a demo, right? They're very, very good. They understand that we crave that attribution. And so they're really good about that. What's funny is they're also really good about saying things like, I can't even tell you what it was the first touch point that I saw you. Like, I've literally seen you everywhere. I've seen your people. I've heard you on podcasts. I've watched your podcast, right? And I need to know more. And so we get a ton of inbound demo requests from people who are just like, y'all are everywhere in my feed, all up in my feed. And I need to know more. But I think the thing that really matters, all of that is really lovely. The thing that really matters is this year we've seen 270% revenue growth, which is unbelievable. And for a company that has two marketers, neither of which are demand gen marketers, I think that speaks a lot to what we're doing in terms of brand and content IP. All right, so let's start looking at how we actually build content IP at Vector. And I'm going to walk through a handful of kind of our tentpole pieces of content IP. And then we're going to talk about, like, how do you go and find your own content IP? Okay, to be honest, I'm going to tell you there are days when it feels like this. And I don't know how many of you have seen the Underpants Gnome episode of South Park. It's an oldie but a goodie. Let me tell you about it. So in South Park, all of the people are doing their laundry and none of them can find their underwear. And it turns out there is a clan of gnomes who come. My mom and dad are going to be so proud when I tell them that I got to talk about this on a global virtual conference. This is amazing. The gnomes come in and they steal the underpants, and the ultimate goal is to profit. And so their process goes something like this. Phase 1, collect the underpants. Phase 2, and phase 3, profit. And so I will tell you, some days it feels just like that. We're doing this crazy stuff that seems a little out there and wild and a little weird, very original, that we ourselves have not seen in the market at all. And then there's kind of this middle phase where we like put it out into the world and we're like, is this going to do anything? Are people going to like this? Are they going to think we're crazy? And it turns out they love the crazy, and we are indeed profiting off of it. But some days it feels a little like out there and we're not really sure. Again, because brand and things like content or IP are very difficult to attribute and track. We all know this. And it's part of the reason why, I think a lot of brands don't invest in it, because it's very difficult to understand how it's actually tying back to revenue and pipeline. But as we saw previously in that last slide, 270% revenue growth, when we don't even have a demand gen marketer on the team, it is possible. It does work. It is the thing, the tide that lifts all boats, if you will. All right, let's get into the actual examples. I first want to share a little bit about our mascot. We have this really adorable, you can kind of see him behind me here. Ghosty is our mascot. Ghosty was a creation of our founders, Josh Perk. And he had this idea one day very early on in Vector when he realized there was kind of this nice little story around what Vector did was we're revealing the people on your site who click your ads and who are researching your competitors and relevant topics. And we're kind of revealing like the ghosts, right? We're de-anonymizing them in a way. We're giving you their names, so now you know who they are. And so he thought, hey, it was like one web page. He just put this little ghost there, and people really gravitated to it. And because of that, it actually became the Vector mascot. We use Ghosty everywhere that we can. So just to walk through a couple of these examples, we actually built a little Ghosty generator earlier this year for a product launch we had, where you could go in and kind of give it a couple details and you could generate your own ghost. We use him in ads, and you can kind of see here we have this really nice little. This is a video ad where the ghosts are kind of lounging in the pool, and then we created this video where like the little unicorn floaty kind of comes out, it like breaks the fourth wall, and that ad was super successful. We use him in obviously we have a couple more ads here. This berry spray and pray 6 feet under. There's something about a ghost digging a grave that is like, I don't know, really scratches an itch that I didn't know I had. I love seeing that. This one down here, put your signals where the scroll is, was another product launch. That was our top performing ad from that campaign, the ghost with the phone. We've done some influencer activities where, we did this video series called Demand Gen Nightmares, and we interviewed a handful of really well-known demand gen marketers. We used Ghosty. It was kind of like this, what's the scariest thing about demand gen today? We use him all over the site. We have a little mail carrier ghosty. We have a little traffic control ghosty. We have this ghosty that's asking you, do you want to book a demo, which I love, right? And so we're just bringing him into our story, and we're sharing this everywhere that we can. I've had people tell me that when they see a ghost, they now think of us and not Snapchat, which I think says a whole lot about what we've been doing, because we do not have a Snapchat budget, I will tell you that. So that was really, really exciting to hear. I think a couple things Ghosty does for us. One, he stops the scroll. People see that and they're like, this is not a typical ad, right? Why is there a ghost in my LinkedIn feed where everything else I see has some sort of icon or symbol for synergy and connection and speed, right? There's all of a sudden this like weird ghost in my feed. So I think he stops the scroll. He gets people to pay attention. Second, he's a really nice shorthand, again, for what the product does. And so he's kind of a great visual shortcut for people to understand like what it is that Vector could do for them and the problem that it could solve. And so those two kind of are the main reasons that we bring Ghosty everywhere. We also have a tool. How are we scaling this is a really great question that I get asked. We have a tool that we use that is trained on our ghost design. And anytime we need something, we can jump in there and spin up a new Ghosty in just a couple of minutes. And then, if it's not quite right, we can kind of guide it to get it there. So the other day I'm working on a new t-shirt design and I want a ghosty that has a sleep mask on, and I can whip that up in just a couple of minutes. But again, this is something that like long ago, not even that long ago, I would have needed, a designer who was well-versed in 3D rendering and someone who could build this for me. And I would probably need that person maybe to be in-house because we're always, needing to create new ghosts. The tool that I'm using for that, Megan, is called Playtor, Pletor. They're fabulous. Check them out. We love Playtor and use them all the time. The other way that we're using this is every single person that joins Vector gets their own ghost. And so my ghosty is inspired by the ghosts from the Anti-Hero video, Taylor Swift's Anti-Hero video, of course. But everyone else kind of has like their own personality, right? And they kind of try to build that into our ghost. So that's kind of a fun little thing that we do internally, again, just to kind of like spread the ghost love. So mascots are an amazing, again, shorthand and great way to stop the scroll. It's worked really, really well for us at Vector. Second thing I want to talk about is our podcast. So we have a podcast at Vector called This Meeting Could Have Been a Podcast. And the premise is that you are jumping into my one-on-ones with my CEO, Josh Perk. We came up with this idea because, I think there's a lot of marketing leaders out there who maybe have a fraught relationship with their CEO, or even if it's not fraught, it's still a difficult one to navigate because you are trying to often prove your worth to someone who maybe doesn't understand marketing. Even if they understand marketing, maybe they have, shiny object syndrome and they're always kind of changing course and want you to do something different. And so we thought it'd be really great to take this idea of building in public to the extreme, let people in to this relationship and into our one-on-ones, to talk about the decisions that Josh and I make every single day at Vector. And so the episodes are things like Jess wants a real marketing budget, or Josh wants to reposition the company, right? And then the whole episode is spent discussing what happened to get us to the point where we ended up around that decision. So this has been a huge part, I think, of our success and our growth, just allowing people to come into our world a little bit. We've built all kinds of like beyond the podcast being a piece of content IP, we have built, I don't even know what you would call this, like derivative content IP from this. So if you see the comic strip kind of image there in the center of the screen, this is a content format that I came up with to help promote the podcast. So something that I saw was we would post video clips, and even though LinkedIn says that they are, giving precedence to video on their platform, I was not seeing that in the numbers. We were not getting the reach. We were not getting the engagement that I was hoping to see. And so I thought, how can I make this moment that I'm trying to share in the clip even faster for someone to digest? And I came up with this idea of like, let's just do a quick back and forth comic, right? And so now we've actually become known for posting these little back and forth comics that just reveal one funny moment from the podcast. Our posts kind of dive into like what prompted this moment. And then of course we promote the full episode. But again, the idea is like, if they've seen this, if they've seen a short clip, they will consider themselves fans of the show, whether they've seen a full episode or not, which is really exciting. We've turned this into an email. It's a bi-weekly email that I send called "This Meeting Could Have Been a Podcast," the email. And I dive into one very specific thing that I focused on in the podcast episode, but I do a deep dive onto that one thing. So, for instance, how I presented the budget as opposed to like how I built it and how I decided what, I needed for paid media versus content, right? Like I went very deep on that email about how I actually presented it to my C-suite so I could get buy-in. So that's become that we have a really great newsletter list building up there. Oh, there we go. We are now we're really bullish on YouTube for this podcast. So we have a podcast playlist there, and we post a ton of shorts. It's kind of our testing ground for like which clips perform best. And then we take those top performing clips and we post them elsewhere. We use them in Spotify. We use them on LinkedIn. And we also just actually started an Instagram account for This Meeting Could Have Been a Podcast. Notice I didn't say for Vector. We actually started it for the podcast itself, because this, to me, you've heard of a lead magnet. This for us has been an awareness magnet, and we want as many people to discover this show and use it as a way to discover Vector. Again, this is how you build content IP. This is a show that can stand on its own, regardless of who it comes from, and then it pulls people into the Vector universe, because they're fans of the show, which is really exciting. Harpreet, I use which social media platforms work well for you? So we have been using LinkedIn, and we just came to Instagram. The comics work really well actually in LinkedIn. We just started posting in Instagram, so I don't have great results for you there. The things that work best on YouTube are usually shorts that have semi-clickbaity titles, if you will, but then are obviously backed up they aren't actually clickbait because they are backed up with the value, or they follow up on what is being talked about in the title inside the clip. So those are kind of the points of success for us there. Because of the podcast, we actually had another piece of content IP that was so unexpected to me, but is maybe one of our most valuable pieces of content IP now at Vector, which is the marketing leader and CEO dynamic. So I think something that came out of the podcast that people really love is how Josh and I work together, our communication style. We're able to kind of rib each other a little bit professionally, of course. And we realize that this relationship in and of itself is something that people were kind of craving an understanding of. How do you sell things into a CEO? How do you disagree with them when they find some shiny object they're obsessed with? How do you either move them off of that or show them like okay, like all right, I will try this out, we're going to test it, right? Like how do you actually just navigate that relationship? And this was something we realized pretty early on was really valuable for people. And so we have played into this pretty heavily, both authentically, and we've kind of created a little bit of a caricature out of it as well. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So here's a few pieces of content just that kind of hinge on this relationship between myself and Josh, my CEO. So the first one there's a great story behind this. We did an entire podcast episode that is coming out later this season about this story. But a few months back, I went on vacation. And while I was on vacation, Josh took it upon himself to try and overthrow me, right? In air quotes, of course. He crowdsourced ideas for the things that he should do in marketing now that I was gone. The next day, he purchased I'mSorryJess.com and filled it with all the ideas and asked for people to submit more ideas. And anyone that did would get a piece of Vector swag. By the end of the week, he was so exasperated that it hadn't produced any leads, that he kind of had a mea culpa moment and apologized. And this was all while I'm on vacation. I, of course, have Wi-Fi and can see all of this happening. Did not know these plans he had. And it really took off. And I think this was kind of a moment where people were like, oh, there's something really weird and wonderful going on here between these two. Like, I need to kind of follow. I'm very invested in this like partnership and this professional relationship. So that was a big moment. The video in the middle there was actually I received my first cease and desist. There was another company who felt our ghost was infringing upon their copyright of their logo. Our lawyers and we disagreed, and Josh actually ended up framing that cease and desist for me. And this was my unboxing video, right? And so there was kind of this whole thing about how like Josh sent me this really wonderful gift and this like note about how proud he was of me of like making other brands sweat, right? So again, like this back and forth dynamic between the marketing leader and the CEO, people are vested in this. And then this last one is just kind of some back and forth in the comments between Josh and I. Somebody was talking about the podcast and I had commented, hey, the one host seems super cool, could do without the guy sometimes. And Josh commented back, I'm literally right here. And I said sometimes, right? And so then we have these like silly back and forth moments. This is kind of the caricature I'm talking about, where you like really lean into, you know, kind of the playfulness of this a bit. And then Ghosty's right there saying, thanks for not cutting my scenes, which I love. So again, this dynamic between the two of us was something I didn't realize, or we didn't really intend to be part of our content IP, but it organically became that. And we're going to continue to kind of ride that wave because it's another thing that we hear in sales calls, in when we meet people at events. Like, we love the podcast, we love what you two have going on, like more please. And so that's something that we're going to continue with for sure. I'll run through this one pretty quickly. Our swag is another piece of content IP. I think we have done a really nice job of setting very high expectations for what good swag looks like. And I think it has probably, I think like requests for our swag are at a point where we cannot we can't actually like fulfill them ourselves anymore. We just actually had to bring on a fulfillment company, which is a great problem to have. So we have a couple different tiers. So we try to do at any given moment, We have something that can be shared on social. That's our Marketers Against Humanity card game. So something that, you know, you might get, and then you might share like the 2 cards that really stood out to you that were just so wild and crazy. And so we've had a number of people, as we send these to them, they're like, oh my gosh, look what Vector got me. Here's my favorite. Love this. So funny. We have our ghost plushie, which was maybe the most in demand item at Exit 5 Drive this year. I brought a few and I was out of them so quickly, which was another great problem to have. I think next year we have maybe some plans to do like a Build-A-Bear-esque thing where we're going to build him little outfits that are exclusive to certain events. So more to come there. We have a Lego. This was a tier that we wanted to have something for the kids, right? So a lot of marketers, you'll go to a conference, you're there for 3 days. So many of them are mothers or parents, and you have to have something to bring home to your kids. And so we were like, let's have something just to give them that they can be like, amazing, check, that is done. It's funny how without even saying that to our audience or to anyone who we give these to, they're like, great, now I don't have to go shopping in the airport for something for my kids, right? So I think the thing about the swag is it's not your typical swag. And I think it really thinks about the person that is going to be receiving it. Even the sweatshirt, we did a poll to see, like, do women prefer like a really nice hoodie or a crew neck? And overwhelmingly, crew necks were it. Like, it's something that they can dress up, dress down. They're more willing to wear it. And so that, you know, that was all something that we took a lot of thought in as well. Oh yeah, and then here's just some really lovely responses to our swag. Won't stop until I get some. We actually had we found out who our top listener of our podcast was on Spotify. And so Ghosty is, you know, saying, get this man a ghost plushie for the love of God. So we have a lot of requests for our swag, which is great. Oh, all right. So you're probably wondering, okay, this is all great. You're lucky because you market to marketers. You have a great mascot. Like, yeah, that's pretty easy. Like, how would you find your content IP? And I think there's 3 things you can think about. And each of these could give you ideas or multiple ideas around what your content IP actually is. The first is, what magic do you have that no other competitor does? At Vector, we have our mascot, we have me and Josh and how we interact with each other. We have kind of our high standards for swag. We have our tone of voice, right? There's another handful of things here that I didn't even get to present that I think we would consider content IP. What magic do you have that no other competitors can claim? How do you make your audience feel seen? I think this is a lot to do with the popularity of like the dynamic between me and Josh. People feel seen both on the CEO side and the marketer side in the things that we disagree about or that we're trying to work on together, right? Where can you go and find something within your company, within your product, within your people that would make your audience feel like you get them completely? And how can you lean into your audience's motivating emotions? Again, this is going back to the idea of like, don't sell the frosting on the flake, sell the ideal state that comes from it, right? And how can you lean into the things that someone feels when they are more successful in their role because of a solution that you were able to provide? If you walk away from this presentation remembering one thing, it would be, for me, I think it would be this. Being forgotten is the most expensive problem in B2B right now. You can't be on anyone's consideration set. You can't be liked by someone in your audience. You can't have someone come to your website and book a demo if they can't remember who you are. And so I think this is something where it's like, how are you going to be remembered? And I think one of the best ways to do that right now is through building your own content IP. I know we're short on time here. Would love to answer maybe 1 or 2 questions before we hit the jump here. And hi, George.
Hey, Jess. That was phenomenal as always. Really,
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed that. I mean, I've been following you guys, and well, I can't help it because it just keeps coming up in my feed. It keeps hitting my inbox, but it's always so good every time. And I
Thank you.
really love the comic strip that you came up with. I think that's such a clever way to get that point across quickly. As you said, LinkedIn's trying to tell everyone to do more video, but the numbers on people's videos are pretty small. I spoke to
Yeah.
someone who has 100,000 followers the other day, and like his videos get 500-600 views. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah,
One
wild.
one
I get 6 times the engagement on those comics than I do on videos.
Wow,
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
Okay.
wild.
Well, maybe steal that one, people, from Jess. 6 times the engagement. Test it out. A question that I have is, when you create a mascot like Ghosty, and I know there are parts that you inherited, but I think you've taken a lot to the next level. How do you stop it from kind of becoming a gimmick and make sure that it's still a strategic asset?
Oh, it's such a good question. Well, I think there's something to be said about restraint. A little bit of a mascot goes a long way. We use him everywhere, so probably seems like he's maybe oversaturated a little bit. I think each of those pieces that I shared was something that was like kind of pumped out into the ecosystem, over a handful of months. Um, there's also something to be said about an owner, right? So I kind of own the voice of Ghosty. So if you ever see someone commenting as Ghosty, it's me, right? And so typically you'll want one person to own that who really understands how would we respond as Ghosty? What would we say as Ghosty, right? Because sometimes if you have a handful of people who are running that, which at some point maybe we will, and then we'll have to have some more systems in place to make that work. But I think right now at the stage we're at, having one person handle that is probably the smart move, so that we can really control where he shows up and what he says.
Okay, so it needs to be like sort of another section to your branding document, I suppose. Is a special
Yes,
ghosty section. And
exactly.
was there a moment where, because I know there's the two founders that you deal with, is Josh, and then I can't recall the name of
And
the
Nick.
other one, but Nick. Josh is super into marketing. He gets it. I think Nick's a bit more financy. Was there a
Mhm.
moment where they kind of realized, hey, all this stuff that Jess is doing, all this storytelling, like pushing the ghost to this great content IP, this is actually starting to make a difference? Was there sort of like a tipping point for you, where you could see, hey, they were really starting to believe in this?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a few months after I started where we had the podcast was rolling. I had brought on a product marketer, Alex Verdon, who's incredible. And she was cranking out just incredible product led content. And I think they started to realize just the value of great opinionated content with personality and what that can do. We don't have a demand gen marketer on the team. And so that 270% revenue growth you saw, that is all I won't say all organic because I'm kind of back here trying to figure out how to make ads work for us, right? But like that is the majority of that has come from organic content and content IP and just relentless sharing and content creation. So yeah, they completely one understand the value of marketing and two want to invest more in it. So yeah, that definitely was a moment where it was like, man, this is working, and this is all working without any kind of demand gen arm.
I mean, credit to you, right? Because you're still doing it in LinkedIn, where a lot of people who are posting are marketers. They're all trying to do the same thing, get other marketers' attention. And Jess, you have once again risen to the top. So, absolutely, congratulations, well done. And I can't wait to see the brand and Ghosty continue to evolve and just be something that's more fun and something that people remember as well. And in terms of Vector, I love where the product is going. I mean, I use it myself. We recommend it for our clients too. And so I think the features that you keep rolling out there are super handy. You're doing a great job at staying in touch with marketers and building something that they can genuinely use.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much, George. I appreciate that. Yeah, keep your I don't know, what do you say? Keep tune into this channel next year too. We have some big things on the calendar I'm really excited about.
Fantastic. Jess Cook, thank you so much. We're going to wrap this session up. People, don't go anywhere. We're going to roll straight into the person who actually made the vector video that we played earlier in the morning. Our next speaker is the man who, well, he wasn't the man who was caught off guard in the bathroom, but he's the man who directed the whole thing, who had the idea of putting the person in the bathroom. Make sure you stick around. We're rolling right into Luke Winter, the serious business of being funny. We're going right there. Stick around.